Hello and welcome to A Bettor Morning, presented by Rival Fantasy. I'm Heather Klein. Rival Fantasy is the all-in-one fantasy sports platform. We have a special edition of A Bettor Morning today. We will be hitting the biggest stories in sports. Here is your host, the Fantasy Exec, Corey Parson.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Heather, for that introduction. It's your boy, Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive, holding it down right here on A Bettor Morning on the Bettor Sports Network. Got a lot to get to coming up on the program today, but first and foremost, it is a big fantasy football draft weekend. Got a little information coming up for you a little bit later on how you can dominate your drafts and win your leagues this year. But coming up on the program, got plenty of preseason football action coming up over the course of the next 3 nights. Want to talk about and recap some of the action that we saw last night. Also want to get into some of the top stories of the week this week, touch on that situation in Washington and our nation's capital. New owners, same drama in D.C. Also, that situation with Eric Bieniemy and how that's playing out with Ron Rivera. But we'll also discuss last night, Shams on his Twitter posted the NBA Christmas Day schedule, getting there and break down some of those games. And then we'll hop in and talk about the news that Rachel Nichols will be one of the part of the members joining Skip Bayless when Undisputed relaunches. So got a lot of stuff to get into, but I want to start off by talking about football games last night. First off, let me say this, right? It was football last night. It's football tonight. You know what I'm saying? It's going to be football on Saturday. I'm going out to the Fantasy Football Expo, which is like a freak meet for fantasy nerds. You know what I'm saying? So I'm going to enjoy myself out there and have a good time. But listen, don't let nobody steal your joy this weekend. Because when you say, oh, I'm going to put a couple dollars on the preseason game, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's going to be like, oh, you're a degenerate. How could you be betting on preseason games? Listen, if they put a line out there, bet on the games. Don't let nobody steal your joy. If you want to degen out this weekend and do fantasy drafts and bet on preseason football, by all means, do it. And we right here at the Bettor Sports Network are here to help you. All right, let's get it rocking. Last night, Houston Texans, New England Patriots in New England. Texans win the game 20-9 over the Patriots. Texans cover the 3-point spread. The total catches to the under. That total was set at 37. C.J. Stroud, first-round quarterback draft pick for the Houston Texans. He comes out the gate 2 for 4 for 13 yards with one of the most horrible interceptions you have ever seen in your life. I mean, like, I don't know if this kid is colorblind or if he was just throwing it to the guy, didn't make the correct read, but it was a terrible interception. So a lot to learn from, a lot to go, a lot to take from this game right here from C.J. Stroud, but it's only one performance, you know what I'm saying? So Houston Texans 20, New England Patriots 9, C.J. Stroud with that big interception. Now, on the other side, Bailey Zappi got the start for the New England Patriots. 12 of 14 for 79 yards, no touchdowns. The Patriots offense did look rather pedestrian, but obviously they're not going to show you too much, you know what I'm saying, in the preseason. That's the way that Bill Belichick is going to handle it. They say it doesn't mean much, just wanted to get Zappi and the new players some work. But coming off the kind of season that New England had, I would have thought it would have been more urgency to show something on offense, but they're probably going to play their cards right. In the pregame show, I believe it was Colleen Wolfe and Daniel Jeremiah, they were talking about how, the New England Patriots are uncertainly a lock to be the worst team in the AFC East this year. I would be very, very, very careful doing that because that Patriot team was in the hunt last year. Remember, they had 2 of the worst losses you can ever have, that one against the Raiders and that one versus the Bills. Listen, they started that season last year a little bit better. New England is right in the thick of things. So I would not be so quick to write the Patriots into that last spot in that AFC East right now. Patriots plus 750 to win the AFC East. Their win total is sitting at 7.5, juice to the under. So people are really out on the New England Patriots this year. I'd be very careful with that. Late night game last night, the nightcap. So the Seattle Seahawks knock off the Minnesota Vikings 24-13. Seattle successfully lays the 3 points. The total was 37. It lands on 37. This is why getting the best line is very important. If you had 37.5 and you bet that under, that ticket cashed. But if you had the under the 37, that ticket right there pushed. Jordan Addison had one catch for 22 yards on 3 targets. He's a hot rookie from Minnesota that everybody's talking about. Jackson Smith and Jigba, the first wide receiver drafted in this year's draft for the Seattle Seahawks. He had 3 catches for 25 yards on 4 targets. Also, Jack Charbonnet, rookie running back, he had 4 carries and 2 catches. Good to see that they might be using him in the passing game. And yes, Malik Cunningham did run the football well last night. And I thought to myself, why wasn't Malik Cunningham drafted? That's interesting right there. So that is our preseason action that took place last night. So once again, everybody, I understand that you're out there and you're getting ready for your upcoming fantasy football draft. Like I said, we'll be out there at the Expo this weekend. But I got a special deal for you right now. Start a free 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and get the fantasy football draft guide and cheat sheet for free. Go to fantasyalarm.com. Matter of fact, you heard the word free, so let me repeat it. Start a free 7-day trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and get the fantasy football draft guide and cheat sheet for free. Go to fantasyalarm.com, and we'll be helping you here to win your upcoming fantasy football leagues. Now, you want to win. Washington football fans also want to win. It's been about 4 decades since they have done so, you know what I'm saying? And obviously, there's optimism abound in Commander Land. Or maybe I shouldn't call it Commander Land because there's a petition with over 60,000 signatures for the fans wanting to change the name back to Redskins. But right now, the name of the team is the Commanders. Some of the names change every 2 years or so. But the name of the team is the Commanders. Optimism with the fan base, right? But just like last year, training camp in Ashburn starts with drama with a coordinator. Now, last year it was Jack Del Rio. This year it is new offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. So before I get to Bieniemy, I want to talk about the head coach, Ron Rivera. 13 seasons of coaching football. Ron Rivera has 3 winning seasons. Now, he did take Carolina to a Super Bowl. He is an NFC champion. But, Ron Rivera is really an overrated head coach. There's talks that this will be his last season on the field. Then he'll go up into the booth. They say they got the right guy in charge in D.C. now. I'm not so sure that's the case because last year, the problem was when you're the head coach, if you have a coordinator popping off at the lips, that's kind of on you. It's your job to control not only the players, but the coaching staff as well. Now, this year, players complaining about new offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy. The players said that Bieniemy was too intense, that the practices was getting a little bit too intense. Now, the players go to the head coach. In this point, the head coach goes to the OC, he goes to the team captains, and they figure it out. Not Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera goes to the media. You know what I'm saying? Because Ron Rivera is about that life. Ron Rivera want to keep the drama going because as long as Ron Rivera can keep the drama going, number one, he's always knows what's happening. And number two, hey, listen, the season don't go right. That offense don't click. Ron Rivera be like, listen, I told you guys. He's the problem right there. So that's the first thing about Ron Rivera. He immediately threw Bieniemy under the bus. But now here's the thing about Bieniemy, and I read this in the Washington Post. People at practice, you can tell how intense Bieniemy is in practice. You can hear him screaming at the players, encouragement as well as criticisms as soon as you get out there. So there is a lot of issues with Eric Bieniemy. Now, we saw Bieniemy and Pat Mahomes get into a little dust-up on the sidelines in Kansas City last year. Apparently, this guy Bieniemy has a slick mouth. He puts the players down. He talks to them in the wrong way. He's like an old-school type disciplinarian. The problem is you ain't no head coach. Now, everybody wants you to be a head coach. That's why, you ever notice the mainstream media this week, the corporate media, they didn't get on Bieniemy. They got on the Washington players instead, calling the Washington players soft. because so many people cap for this guy to be a good coach and to get a job. But my thing was this. A couple seasons ago, somebody said to Bienemy, hey, listen, that college job over there is open. They want to talk to you. I don't want to do that. The media said, oh, he doesn't have to be a college coach. He coaches in the NFL. He coaches Patrick Mahomes. Why can't he be an NFL head coach? Well, Deion Sanders wanted to coach Florida State, but he couldn't get that job. As a matter of fact, he couldn't get any Power 5 job. So he went down to Jackson State and won. See, he went and got a chance to go be a head coach. Bienemy, if you want to be a head coach, you need to act like a head coach. Not to mention the fact, Shady McCoy, everybody called him a hater when he was saying that he didn't know if Bienemy was head coach material because of the way that he spoke to the players. And a lot of players don't like it. And let me tell you something. It's not undrafted free agents going to Bienemy. It's not the rookies going to Bienemy. For Bienemy to bring this to, for Rivera to bring this to Bienemy's attention, it's the starters. It's the players on that offense that's important that's complaining about him. Interesting to see how that situation in D.C. shakes up. Listen, I know that a lot of people are in on them and they want them to do well this season, but I think that Washington is a team that will go over their win total of 7.5. And I do think I would put something on them at about plus 150 to qualify for the playoffs and the NFC. I think they get this thing turned around. So I believe in Washington a little bit. Now, the other big story, one of the other big stories in the news this week was Penn Gaming getting into a relationship, getting out of a relationship with Barstool and getting into a relationship with ESPN. Penn Gaming is now going to be the guys that set up ESPN Bet. And listen, media companies going into the betting space doesn't really work. As a matter of fact, everybody going into the betting space doesn't really work. DraftKings and FanDuel own the market share. I think Fanatics is going to be a player. Everybody else, more than likely, including ESPN Bet, is going to have the same problem. You look at Sports Illustrated. They got a sportsbook app. You never placed a wager on there. Fox got Fox Bet. That app not on my phone, probably ain't on yours either. ESPN Bet will likely be the same thing as well. ESPN is a sinking ship right now. They got Pat McAfee, Stephen A., and broadcast rights to the game. They're even messing up the broadcast crews, getting rid of Van Gundy and Mark Jackson. You know what? It's a struggling brand. They're going to go to betting to try to save it. It's going to make their programming worse. I guarantee you that, because the people that work there that know how to talk betting were let go in the layoffs. So who's going to get up there and talk betting? So I think there's trouble abound at the worldwide leader. But listen, their programming is going to start to change. It's going to be heavily into betting because obviously they need users to sign up so Penn Gaming can get their money's worth. So that's what's going on right now at the worldwide leader. Got some other media stuff going to get into in a little bit. But last night, I actually was pretty happy when I saw this take place. My man Sham Sharania on Twitter posted or released the NBA Christmas Day schedule. Shout out to the NBA on really the first big night of preseason action. They go ahead and drop the schedule for their main day. I want to talk about and quickly touch on some of these contests right now. You got the New York Knicks and the Milwaukee Bucks. They set things off Christmas Day at Madison Square Garden. Listen now, Giannis had that big dunk on Christmas Day at Madison Square Garden, but this is a different New York Knicks team. We saw how Jalen Brunson was a big success. Tibbs had this team playing well. They gave the Miami Heat all that they can handle. I think the Knicks are going to be contenders in the Eastern Conference. So this is going to be a good game right here. The Bucks coming to MSG on Christmas Day. Then after that, we go down to South Beach for what I'm going to call the Damian Lillard game. Philadelphia 76ers versus the Miami Heat down there in South Beach on Christmas Day. Christmas in Miami for Joel Embiid and the crew. Now, which one of these teams is going to have Damian Lillard? Will it be the Philadelphia 76ers? Will it be the Miami Heat? Because Tyler Hero is the package that the Heat offered. Hero, some players, and some draft picks. The 76ers, though, if they wanted to, they can include Tyrese Maxey, who is 3 times better than Tyler Hero. And that could be a game changer right there. But from what I'm hearing, the Sixers are hesitant to move off Maxey. But listen, Portland's in no rush to trade Damian Lillard. But I can see one of these two teams more than likely being the destination. Then the middle game of the day, the dinner time game, when you sit down, presents is open, kids running around playing, everybody done took their nap, the cousins done went outside, came back smelling funny. That means it's time for the greatest rivalry in the NBA, Boston Celtics, Los Angeles Lakers on Christmas Day at Crypto.com Arena. LeBron James, year 2020, whatever it is, Tatum and Brown coming into LA for a renewal of the greatest rivalry in the NBA on Christmas Day. And then you got a couple of interesting Western Conference matchups to close the night. You have the Dallas Mavericks, who had a pretty decent offseason, I would say. I seen it when my man Luka Doncic got married. Luka needs to come to work healthy and in shape this year. A little bit too much pudge around the midsection for Luka Doncic. Now you can say, well, executive, you got pudge around the midsection. I'm a 40-something-year-old man. I don't play in the NBA. You know what I mean? Luka Doncic, on the other hand, he needs to get that figured out. I'm working on myself as well. Kyrie Irving re-signs. He re-ups. He's back out there. Kyrie Irving with the Dallas Mavericks. This Luka-Kyrie Irving thing did not work last year, but I think a full season, you get these two teams together. You like it. I love it. They go into the Valley of the Sun to face the Phoenix Suns. Phoenix Suns' splash move this offseason was bringing in Bradley Beal from Washington, D.C. I think Beal is washed up. Full disclosure. Bradley Beal, last year in D.C., Kyle Kuzma was running the offense, not Bradley Beal. Kristaps Porzingis was out there getting it done, not Bradley Beal. So Bradley Beal, very expensive player, $40-something million. The Suns got like 4 cats that make over $30 million a season. And then they got dudes that like I went to school with that they picked up off the scrap heap. Dudes like Bobo, all these guys that always have these potential but never show up. They do have Eric Gordon, but listen, as long as they got Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, they're going to be in the mix. That's going to be a fascinating game. You already have the rivalry between Luka Doncic and Devin Booker. So that'll be an interesting matchup Christmas Day. And then to close it, we get to the good stuff. The Denver Nuggets and not Joel Embiid and Nikola Jokic host Steph Curry and the Golden State Warriors. So we got the Warrior Dynasty versus the reigning champion Denver Nuggets to close the night on Christmas night. Listen, that big three is back together. Jordan Poole is gone. Steph, Clay, and Dre going out there to make another run. This year, they are not the hunted. They are the team doing the hunting as they go into Denver to take on the Denver Nuggets. The Denver Nuggets lost a couple of their key pieces, but the Nuggets still bring back a tremendously talented squad. So it's going to be interesting to see how that game plays out. That one is definitely circled on the calendar. All right, once again, let me remind you, big weekend of fantasy football drafting. So you want to go ahead and sign up for a 7-day free trial of Fantasy Alarm's All-Pro subscription and get the fantasy football draft guide and cheat sheet for free. Go to fantasyalarm.com. Now, in my opinion, there is a team that is missing from Christmas Day in the NBA. And I probably wouldn't have had the Dallas Mavericks here, being that the Dallas Mavericks didn't even make the play-in tournament last year. So I would have eliminated them, but there is no Memphis Grizzlies on this Christmas Day schedule. And you say, well, Ja Morant not playing. Well, Ja Morant will be back by Christmas Day. Game 26 of the NBA season will probably be the first weekend in December, the second week of December. Interesting, no job, but Memphis gets the Christmas Day game last year. Then they come back this year. No Christmas Day game for the Memphis Grizzlies. But they go to Christmas Day matchups. Knicks, Bucks, 76ers, Heat, Lakers, Celtics, and then you have Mavericks versus Suns, and then the Golden State Warriors and the Denver Nuggets. That is your NBA Christmas Day schedule. It took plenty of time till we get there. Right now, obviously, fantasy football is front and center. So everybody going out there this weekend to get your drafts done, make sure you get that free cheat sheet sign up for that trial over there at Fantasy Alarm because Howard Bender, Coop, the whole crew, the fellas over there know what they're doing. They got you covered. I will be out there with them this weekend after we get off here. I'm going to make my way to Cleveland, Ohio, and then to Canton, Ohio. We'll be at the Hall of Fame tomorrow as I'm auctioneering one of the auction drafts. The NFL, the Pro Football Hall of Fame, whenever I walk in, I like to say that I am on hallowed ground. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have somebody tape me walking into the Hall of Fame this year, and that's going to be the opening shot of A Football Life, the Fantasy Executive. Because Heather Klein, you do know, before it is all said and done, there will be a Football Life on the Fantasy Executive, and production starts in Canton, Ohio tomorrow. What's up, Heather?
Well, that sounds exciting. It's kind of surreal almost that you're like in the Hall of Fame where you see all these things that these amazing athletes have accomplished. So I imagine it's pretty cool to be around.
Hey, so Heather, and listen, no, it is. Let me tell you what's so crazy. The first year I went to the Kings Classic, right? I was in the league, right? So when they took the break, I had never really been to the Pro Football Hall of Fame before. So when they took the break, I did a tour of the Hall of Fame. But I guess my tour took too long. So while I was out there, right, I'm in one of the exhibits and I hear, will Corey Parson report to the gold jacket room? And I was like, oh my God, my name just went across the loudspeakers at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Roll the credits of Football Life, the Fantasy Executive.
Wow, that's pretty. I mean, was it in the voice of like Hard Knocks or NFL Films or something?
No, it did. We didn't have John Facenda, you know what I'm saying? But it
Or
definitely
Lee Schreiber.
or Lee Schreiber, but it definitely was a kick to have my name called at the loudspeaker at the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Heather, not only are the fans and the teams and the coaching staffs and the executives getting ready for fantasy football, the networks are getting ready for the upcoming NFL season as well. And we see where FS1, who has that show Undisputed, that had Skip Bayless and Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe now moves on along, more than likely going to end up on First Take with Stephen A. Well, they are starting to announce certain pieces of their strategy this upcoming season, and when they get back on the air later on in August. So we heard earlier, Heather, that Lil Wayne would be somebody that's going to be contributing. What do you think about Lil Wayne talking sports?
From what I understand, he's knowledgeable. I think he'll give an entertaining take. It is only, from what I understand, Fridays.
Yes.
So, and did you hear if he's going to be there the entire episode, or is he just going to be on there part of the time? I don't know if I can do a whole 3 hours of Lil Wayne.
Lil Wayne, I think he's going to be there for the whole show. Lil Wayne it's not like Lil Wayne like you remember. Like I seen Lil Wayne on Pivot recently, and he's like an adult Lil Wayne now. He's just Wayne. You know what I'm saying?
He's Big Daddy Wayne, or he's grown Wayne, or like you said, Wayne.
Wayne, you know what I'm saying? So he's an adult now. You know what I'm saying? He got grown kids like me. You know what I mean? They also said that Richard Sherman is going to be a guy who's going to be contributing as well. Sherman will do, I think they said, between 70 to 100 shows in the season. So Richard Sherman will be a part of Undisputed. Obviously, you know that Richard Sherman and Skip had a very comical beef on First Take many years ago. Sherman telling Skip that he was better than him at life.
Yeah, I remember that. That's why I find this very interesting. But everyone can, move on, and they probably take it as they'll have a good rapport on the air, which I think Richard Sherman might be a great replacement for Shannon, but I loved Shannon on the show.
Yeah, I'm not really the biggest Shannon Sharpe guy, but I'll save that for another time. Another person now, Heather, they said that another person they're going to add is either Keyshawn Johnson or Michael Irvin.
Oh, wow. Wow.
No thoughts on that one, huh? Keyshawn or Michael Irvin? I wanted to be Michael Irvin.
Actually, Michael Irvin, yeah. I find him more entertaining, to be honest. I think he's great on the air.
Up there sweating and talking loud, you know what I'm saying? But interesting, he's got a couple of I don't want to say legal things, but he's got some controversy around him right now. I prefer Michael Irvin on First Take, to be honest with you. I think him and Stephen A. do a great job. But Heather, earlier this week, it came out that Rachel Nichols was also going to be a contributor on the brand new Undisputed. Nichols obviously let go by ESPN a couple years ago. Now, Heather, she was let go, right? But the reason why she was let go is really kind of crazy to me, because somebody was recording a private conversation of hers. The network had let her know that Maria Taylor was going to be taking her spot on the NBA pregame show. And Maria Taylor used that information as leverage in contract negotiations. And eventually, ESPN, and you know how they do with their public relations, they always want to be on the so-called right side. They let Nichols go. I'm sure they had to pay her out handsomely. Now
they did.
I'm sure they did.
They had a settlement.
I'm sure. Was a number ever disclosed?
No, but
see, Heather, when a number's not disclosed, it's probably pretty heavy.
Her yearly salary was between somewhere around 1.2 and 1.5 million a year. Yeah. So that was just her salary. So I can't imagine what they settled for. So I don't think she's hurting for much. But the way that it was handled, she got thrown under the bus. They used her private conversation, and that shouldn't have happened. But that's happened in, presidents. They like to take advantage of anyone, right?
So no, you definitely see that happens where, you look at the situation with Donald Sterling, private conversation. That's from an NBA owner. It's much different though. But right here in the media, if I was president of ESPN, I'd have told them, y'all don't have to work together. I'm keeping both of y'all. If you don't like it, so what? You know what I mean? But that's the kind of program director the fantasy executive would be. But listen, good to see that Rachel Nichols be back. I'm a fan of Rachel Nichols. You know what I'm saying? She does stuff for Showtime basketball now. She gets down right there. So listen, everybody, please enjoy your weekend. You got drafts coming up this weekend. The right thing to do is to head on over to Fantasy Alarm. Start that 7-day free trial. Get that all-pro subscription. You get the draft guide and cheat sheet free. Go to fantasyalarm.com. I want to thank everybody for rolling with us this weekend. We'll be back next week for another week of the Better Morning. For my bestie, Heather Klein, it's Corey Parson, the Fantasy Executive. Enjoy your weekend. We are out. Heather, take us home.
All right, that was today's edition of A Bettor Morning. Make sure you check out Fantasy Football Game Show presented by Front Yard Fantasy, with Simon, JL, and Joey. And if you missed any of our shows, you can find them all on our YouTube channel and at bettersports.com. Corey, great show. Great to be a part of it. Have a better weekend.